We are going to continue our Unit 2 review on rational numbers. Lesson 11A is just an extension of yesterday's lesson. We're going to explore the relationships between fractions, decimals, and percents. And we sometimes use a system called Fire Department, FDP. FDP standing for fractions, decimals, and percents. So today we're going to talk about converting decimals to percents. Quite easily, all you're doing is moving the decimal space 2 spaces to the right. This is like multiplying times 2. So let's look at these 4 examples, and then you'll do 4 on your own. So we have our decimal behind the 0 to move it 2 spaces to the right. 1, 2. Our new decimal is behind 58, so it is 58%. In example number 10, find the decimal, move it 2 spaces to the right. There is no number in the second space we went, so we add a 0 and put our new decimal, 160%. Example number 11, take the decimal, move it 2 spaces to the right, 65%. Number 12, move it 2 spaces to the right. Here's our decimal, 1, 2, fill in a 0, 380%. Now it's your turn. Go ahead and pause the video. Complete numbers 13 through 16. After you feel like you have them complete, go ahead and turn it back on again. 0.25, move your decimal 2 spaces to the right, 25%. Number 14, 2 spaces to the right, so it's between the 9 and the 8, 719.8%. Number 15, move it 2 spaces to the right, 16%. Number 16, move it 2 spaces to the right. It ends up being between the 3 and the 5, 1,213.5%. Hopefully you did well on that. Our next part of the lesson is converting percents to decimals using the opposite operation. We're going to go 2 spaces to the left, something like you're dividing by 100. So we look at 38.9. Here's my decimal. We're going to move it 2 spaces to the left. My answer is 0.389. Example number 18, 155. We're going to move it 2 spaces. Here's our decimal. Move it 2 places to the left. Our decimal is 1.55. Number 19, I like to rewrite them, so it's easier to move the decimal. Move it 2 spaces to your left, 0.426. If you leave out the 0 before the decimal, it is not incorrect. It's just good to have a 0 there as a placeholder. 360%, write it out. Here's our decimal, move it 2 spaces to the left. Our answer is 3.6. Is it necessary to write the 0 behind? No. If it's written there, is it incorrect? No. Go ahead and do some on your own. It's your turn. Do numbers 21 through 24. When you get done, go ahead and turn the video back on. Okay, 5%. Our decimal is right there. Move it back 2 spaces. We need to fill in the empty space. 0.05. Number 22, 0.078. Find your decimal, move it 2 spaces back, add a 0. 0.123078. Be confident in your answer. If you've moved the decimal, you have the right answer. 100%. Our decimal's behind this last 0. Move it back back 2 spaces, our answer is 1. Could you say 1.0? Yes, you could. 0.4, move back 2 spaces, 1, 2, put our new decimal, add in a 0 in that empty space, our answer is 0.004. Okay, now we're going to make use of the system of fire department to transition between fractions, decimals, and percents. When you're doing fractions, it's simply a division problem. Numerator divided by denominator will give you your decimal. Going from decimals to percents, we are moving our decimal 2 spaces to the right. When you are going from percents to decimals, you are going 2 spaces to the left. And that allows you to toggle back and forth between decimals and percents. And just having the system, what I do when I'm trying to figure out decimals or percents, I quickly do something like this. And I can see that I'm going left to right for decimals to percents and right to left for percents to decimals. It takes you 2 seconds and it's a good way to check your work. So now I'm going to go through a set of examples. We're going to go ahead and fill in this whole chart, and then you're going to have a chart to fill in for practice. So my fraction is 5/8. I want to make it a decimal and then a percent. So I would take 8 and divide it into 5. Okay, it goes in there 6 times. 6 times 8 is 48. 8 goes into 22 times. 8 goes into 45 times. So our decimal for 5/8 is 0.625. And you know, all you need to do is move your decimal over 2 spaces to get your percent. 62.5%. Now, the second example, you are given a decimal. Well, it's quite easy to make it into a percent. You're going to move it over 2 spaces, so it's 348%. To make it into a fraction, we remember from yesterday's lesson, the 3 can be taken out of the problem to start with, and it's 48 over, you have 2 digits behind the decimal, so we're going to need 2 zeros. And then you start dividing it out. I can divide it by 2, and then I can divide it by 2 again. Okay, so now I am going to get 3 and 12/25. That's exactly what we did yesterday. Next example, 46%. Move our decimal 2 spaces to the left, 0.46. And we look at this, and it is 2 decimal places to the right of the decimal. So we had 2 zeros, 46 over 100. I know I can divide that by 2. Numerator by 2, denominator by 2. 23 over 50. 2/3, let's go ahead and divide this one out. 3 goes into 2. It's going to be a repeating decimal. 6 times, and you can already see the repeat. And so on. So our decimal for 2/3 is 0.6 with a bar over it. To make it into a percent, and I'm going to ask you to round your percents to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to go ahead and write out all these 6's behind here. Okay, I'm moving my decimal 2 spaces to the right. My answer is going to be 66.7% because I can round up the 6 behind the decimal. 0.85, make it into a percent, move it 2 spaces to the right, 85%. Making it into a fraction, 85 over 100. I know that both the numerator and denominator end in a 5 or a 0, so I'm going to divide them both by 5. So my answer is 85 divided by 5 is 17. 100 divided by 5 is 20. Next one, 225%. Move our decimal back 2 spaces. 2.25. So I know it's 2, and 0.25 is the same as 1/4. 8.35% is easy enough. Move it 2 spaces to the right. 835%. And then it's 8 and 35 over. There's 2 decimal places behind, so we're going to add 2 zeros. I know I can divide numerator and denominator by 5, 8 and 7/20. Okay, go ahead and pause the video and work on the one that's in your packet. Turn that back on when you get finished with your table, and you can go ahead and check your work. Okay, let's see how well you did. I'm just going to fill it in, and then if you have questions, you can come to my desk and we'll talk about them. 3/8 as a decimal is 0.375. Move our decimal 2 spaces to the right for your percent, 37.5%. 4.2, if we move it 2 spaces to the right for percent, 420%. And it's 4 2/10, which is the same as 4 1/5. 36%, move it 2 spaces to the left, 0.36. As a fraction, it's 36 over 100. It can be reduced to 9 over 25. 1/3 as a fraction, 0.3 with a bar over it. To get your percent, you need to write it out. Move it 2 spaces to the right, 33.3%. 0.72, move it to the left 2 spaces, 72%, or to the right 2 spaces. 72%, 72 over 100, and then when you simplify it, it's going to be 18 over 25. 125% is 1.25. We know that 0.25 is 1/4, so it's 1 1/4. 9.15, move the decimal 2 spaces to the right, 915%. As a fraction, 9 and 15 over 100. We know that we can simplify the fraction by dividing by 5, 9 and 3/20. Hopefully you have figured out how to fill in one of these tables, because that's what you're going to do for prep work. Have fun!